it's possible that he hasn't been on the show 50 some odd times at this point. He's won them all, literally every single one, and it doesn't appear like he plans on stopping anytime soon. The most dominant force in the sport of drag racing today, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for my buddy Steve Torrence. What's going on, man?
Hey Wes, what's going on, brother? Good. I'm glad to be here. I finally made it on the Wes Buck show.
Oh shoot, man! I appreciate you so much. I know you're tied up and you're busy today, but man, you're rocking those Ray-Bans. I told you, this guy's worried about. Hey, man, are you okay with me doing this in my truck? And I'm like, oh, dude, you look good wherever you're at, man. So thank you for taking the time, brother. I appreciate it very much. I could spend 2 hours listing off your accomplishments, man, but I'm kind of curious. You know, most drivers, most athletes, if you will, kind of enter their career with a list of things they want to accomplish, right? They're making notes on a cocktail napkin or wherever they choose to dream, a legal pad. Here's what I'd like to accomplish. Here's what I want to do this. I'm curious. I can't imagine you had 50 plus Top Fuel wins on your list. I can't imagine you had multiple championships. I can't imagine you had an undefeated playoff run on your list and all these things. So I have to ask, man, with all those boxes ticked, you've won every race on the NHRA National Event Tour. What gets Steve Torrence out of bed tomorrow? What motivates you to continue doing this? Because if you look at stick and ball sports, you look at boxing, you look at all these other things, I mean, an argument could be made. I mean, you're a very young man, but what's left for Steve Torrence?
You can look at that and say, okay, man, we've done all that, but there's always more. There's always the next level, and there's always Tony Schumacher, John Force, those guys, they've been out here doing it for years. And I've said it a couple times before, winning will cure anything, at least for a little bit. I mean, it may cure cancer for the rest of the day. And then, it gives you that feeling of gratitude and accomplishment, and it never gets old. And so we go out there and we chase that feeling. That's what you're chasing. Whether you look at them now or you look at them at the end of their career, I think that I choose to look at it at the end of my career. I don't want to look at what we've done to this point, because I don't want to lose that drive and that motivation and just that focus that it's never good enough. It's always what's next. And so that's how we approach it. That's what keeps every one of my guys and myself going, is that next race, that next round win, that next race win. And just when you put that stuff behind you and just concentrate on the future and what's moving forward, I think that's really what motivates us.
Man, it's an amazing thing to see. And it's funny because I think we talk all the time in racing about the addiction that this is, right? And I mean, I've had people compare it to drugs, compare it to smoking cigarettes. I had a dear friend of mine who was trying to quit smoking, and he told me, he goes, Wes, I wake up every morning chasing that buzz. Like, yeah. That's what you wake up, you light up a Marlboro light or whatever, and you're chasing that buzz. And I honestly think that's what you're explaining right here, because it's not about how many trophies are on the mantle, right? It's not about how many belts are around your waist or what have you, medals around your neck. It's just the chase, right? And we hear that a lot of times from super successful people, that it wasn't, it's cliche to say that, well, right, life's not a destination, it's a journey. We see all these things in books and whatnot, but it really is that chase is what keeps people such as yourself going to the next one. Because I honestly think there's plenty of people that would go, man, what in the world does Steve Torrence have left to prove? Nothing.
Yeah. And I mean, I've had people ask me that, well, when are you going to stop? What more do you want to do? And it's easy to answer that. I don't know when I'm going to stop. And what I have left to do is more, because I never lose that drive to win. I think that it's instilled in people as they grow up, or it's just in them, or whatever it is. But that sense of accomplishment, to feel that sense of success, once you taste that, you want it more and more. And it's just competition. Like I'm competitive by nature, whether it's going out here and racing a top fuel car or racing super comp with my dad, or if I'm playing golf with my buddies, or if we're at home flipping quarters, I want to win. Whatever it is. Like if we're going to color in the coloring book, I want to be the best. And that's what drives me, is just not only to win, but to be the best, and not to just barely win or barely get by, but just make a statement. And you know, in the car, there's only so much I can do. I have an unbelievable team. I think you and I have talked about that, and it's those are the guys that are the reason for my success. But I have one job, and it's to drive that race car. It's to leave on time, drive it straight, and get it to the end quicker than the guy beside me or the girl beside me, no matter what. And I want to be the best at that. There's going to be a lot of things. Steve Torrence is this, that, or whatever, but he was good, and he won. You know, he was a winner. That's what I want to overshadow a lot of stuff. Is, you know, I've done some dumb crap, but I would like that winning to overshadow it, and I'm working at that.
Brother, you're yeah, I don't know that you've done anything dumb. I'm going to be honest real quick. And when I saw you coasting to a stop on the big end of Lucas Oil Raceway, right? The parachutes are dragging on the ground. That Capco Top Fuel drags are slowing to a stop, and you're out of the car, Steve. You're standing in the cockpit, six shooting left and right, blowing the smoke off the pistols. I got to be honest with you. I stopped. This is gonna people make fun of me for when I say this stuff. I've got goosebumps right now as I describe it. I stopped and thanked God, because those moments, I'm going to be honest, man, are infinitely more important to our sport and where this sport is going than any number of highlight reel replays or crash replays. That's what our sport has so frequently gone to the well with. How quick can we show some tire shake? Let's show some headers, right? Let's show some header flames. Let's show somebody barrel rolling through the grass. But I'm telling you, it's moments like that when you show us that you're a human being and that this stuff means everything to you and you're proud of it and you're fired up. It's burnt in my mind, right? And those are the moments that inspire young kids, inspire other racers to go, I want to feel what that felt like. I want to know that moment. And the focus is so heavily on the cars and drag racing. It's often problematic, in my opinion, in this man's humble opinion. But I'm telling you, thank you for giving us that real emotion. And I'm just curious for everybody watching, would you take us through that? Because I mean, a few milliseconds prior to unbelting yourself, I hear drivers tell me all the time, "Hey, man, they got me strapped so tight in this car, I can hardly take a deep breath." But you're shucking this stuff all up and standing up. Can you just take us through that moment of elation, Steve?
Man, there's so much that builds up to that moment. Not only just race day, but you're also talking. This is the U.S. Nationals. You build this up your whole life. If you're a drag racing fan, you know the magnitude of that race. It doesn't count anymore. It doesn't a lot of anymore, but it is more. Everything about it is more. It's the U.S. Nationals. It's where legends are made, and so the build up to just going to the race is huge. And then first round you get by, second round you get by, third round, you know, everybody's tough. I had my dad third round, one of the few cars to even go down the right lane, and was there and ready for us if we screwed up. And then in that round, we had the opportunity to run behind Grubnick and Brittany, and we see what they do, and you know that you got to have lane choice. The racetrack was a one-lane racetrack, and sometimes it's that way and sometimes it's not, but that way, that day it was. And so I go in there and I'm staging the car and I'm trying to flicker that bulb. I'm trying to get as skinny as I can, just shallow. And my dad, I told him, I said, man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to flicker the bulb that hard, but I was going for every bit of ET, and I planned on kicking your butt anyway. And he started laughing. He goes, man, I was still looking at that bulb flicker when you took off, and I was 106 or something. So um, it's crazy that I remember so many details up to it. And then final round, you've got Brittany that's a world champ driver, and you've got David Grubnick that is the Hail Mary thrower that connects more often
He
than not.
is.
And so what you know what that team is capable of. But I've got a lot of confidence and just belief in Richard Hogan and Bob again and every one of my guys. And I have a little confidence in that left lane. I think that left lane's going to be better. And then you see Wilkerson run down through there and win in the right lane, and I'm like, oh shit, man, maybe it's going to be a little bit tough. And I stepped on the gas. I knew I was a little late. I was 75. That was my worst light of the day, but we were able to hold on. I didn't hear Brittany smoke the tires. I heard her when we left, and then I couldn't hear her the rest of the way, so I didn't know what was going on. But when you go through, you throw the chutes and you start looking at that wall. You're looking for that light to come on, and it takes forever. I don't know how we're covering ground. We're going 300-400 feet a second, but you're looking for that light to light up, and when it comes on, that time takes 5 minutes to happen, and then it takes forever to go to the finish line. I didn't even remember. I went back and watched the race Monday. I didn't remember standing up out of the car. I didn't remember any of that because you're just so pumped up. And raw emotion is something that I've had difficulty controlling in the past. But if I'm happy, I'm happy. I'm easy to read, and I don't hold back. So that feeling of winning the U.S. Nationals, the second time that we've done it as a team, and just the way we did, because we go out, we go 68 in qualifying, we go 71 first round, and then 74 every round after that. I mean, probably our average ET is going to be 72 or something, and that's pretty stout for 5
Yeah.
laps, and that's when you just have that pride and you want to puff that chest out and say, I drive that car right there, and those guys work on it and tune it. And I'm just like the hood ornament on the front of a big truck. It's like the Mack truck with the little Bulldog on the front. I'm the little Bulldog on the front that just gets to represent everything under it and behind it and what makes it be that Mack truck.
Well, dude, you do an incredible job of being the little bulldog out front, Steve. I mean, and I got to tell you, man, for whatever hell you've taken over the years for being, for wearing your heart on your shirt sleeve, I want you to know that there is a large contingent of us in the drag racing world that applaud it every step of the way, because you got to take the good with the bad out here. You really got to you got to be that way. You've got to, if we're going to see our sport get to where I believe it could go, I believe drag racing here, hand on the Bible, this is the great American motorsport. I mean, what's the best part of a NASCAR race? The drag race to the finish line, right? I
Exactly.
mean, what's the best thing that can happen at a Formula One race? Two of them things, goofy looking things, coming out of the final turn, side by side toward the checkered flag. Drag racing is what this country was built on, in my opinion, as far as motorsports goes. And I get, and the only way we're going to get to where some of those sports are is by having ambassadors such as yourself, competitors such as yourself, sell the world on it by being fired up. And that means being happy when you win and being pissed off when you lose. And I was watching when Ron Capps was dejected climbing out of that Napa funny car. I'm watching, I go, please throw something, kick it, freaking please, for the love of God, do something. And he gave us a good show. He was clearly, he was clearly upset, but a lot of times people need to see how much it means to win and how bad it hurts to lose, because most people are never going to go 300 mile an hour. Right? Most people are never going to get to do this stuff, right? So how can we get them hooked on this is by getting them hooked on Torrence, Steve-O, by getting them hooked on Ron Capps, by getting them hooked on Matt Hagan. It's about the personalities. So man, I will tell you, please don't let off the gas. Good, bad, ugly, otherwise, let us have it. And I tell you what, those people that say bad about it, they're going to say bad about something else. If it's not that, it'll be something else, brother. I'm curious, what going into the countdown here, things have tightened up, Steve. For what we lack in quantity, we surely make up for in quality of cars right now. Who do you see as your biggest threat headed into this final stretch of the NHRA drag racing season?
Hands down, it's going to be Brittany and Grubnick. I mean, they're just such a strong team over there. But you got to look out for Milliken right now. You got to look out for Antron right now. At any given time, you got to watch anybody. I mean, nobody's easy. And these things, when you add nitro into the mix, throw out any kind of safe bet. I mean, it's just, these things make so much power. Conditions change. They can blow up at the drop of a hat. anything can happen. I mean, look at Hagen. He didn't, or Hagen's car didn't even qualify because of the pin or bolt fell out of the wheelie bar and they couldn't
Yes.
make the run. So, I mean, it's anything, but definitely Grubby and Brittany are going to be tough competition. And they're coming on strong. They've really, they struggled at the first of the year. Everybody has really struggled. We just seem to have had some of the breaks go our way when we needed to, and found a little more consistency. But those guys are really coming on hard, and I think that's going to be the people that we've got to really go toe to toe with. And so, I've never been a fan of the countdown, still not, but I think at this point we would be so far ahead that we would already had the championship clinched. So it's definitely going to make us go out there and fight toe to toe and even harder. And just going back to the first thing you asked me, that's something that we got to prove. We can do it any way you want it done,
Well, I think it's
Or
fantastic. I mean, I'm with you, brother. I mean, it's like I'm not the biggest fan of the countdown myself. I think about some of the people who I don't want to use the word robbed. I think that might be extreme, but maybe not. No, they got robbed. There's been some times when it feels like, man, these are guys who've worked their whole lives for this moment, right? And because of just following in the steps of other sports, right? We're gonna just do what they do because that looks like I'm not sure how I feel about it. Closing question, Steve. I know you got to go. I know you're late for a meeting. We had a hell of a show in Indy. Like, despite the rain and despite losing a bunch of qualifying rounds, we did get an exciting first round of action. Some matchups that likely we wouldn't have seen otherwise. We'd have seen all the top cars on the top half of the ladder, and we probably wouldn't have seen some upsets and things like that. I'm curious, despite that really, really good moment in Indy, a bunch of killer cars, we've obviously had some low moments here in 2021. We had a pretty tough field in Brainerd, obviously a tough field in Denver. I'm just curious, do you have any input on what do you see as the biggest issue for nitro racing today? Like, what needs to happen in order to see Top Fuel drag racing have kind of the highly competitive full fields, not just in Indy, but everywhere the NHRA roams?
Really in the Top Fuel ranks, it's everybody says, oh, we need to make it cheaper to run these cars. And we're a family funded team. So we probably run it a little cheaper than a lot of the teams out there that are at the top, the Colettas, the
Yeah,
Schumachers.
really.
And that's hard to believe, but the cars don't run that hard by tearing up parts. I hear people all the time saying, oh, well, you run it that hard and blow it up and stick another one in it. You can't run in the 60s if you're beating parts up. It just doesn't work. It's hurting itself from the time you hit the gas. It's not going to go 60. The biggest problem is even the lower funded teams, they don't get enough compensation back from qualifying, from winning first round. And it gets worse. The pay scale gets worse the further you
As you
go.
go.
And I know NHRA is working really hard at it, but we just need more funding in the sport to keep it going. This year it's $45,000 to win a race. It costs significantly more than that to go race, to put the guys on the road. The biggest part of aside from just parts, the biggest expense in a Top Fuel team is the travel and the hotels and these 3 and 4 race swings that we go and do. Your whole crew is on the road for a month. And when you have 10 guys on each team, and that's bare minimum what it takes to be able to turn that car around in 40 minutes like we did on Sunday. That's a huge expense. I personally think that if NHRA would shorten the schedule, have maybe 18 races, you would get more participation. We would dilute the markets a little less instead of having, half a dozen races concentrated in the Northeast. And all those fans, they don't go to every one of those races. And so I think that that would be my opinion, is shorten the schedule a little bit, up the pay, and incentivize multiple teams to come back out. It's too difficult. That's why we didn't run Billy's car on the Western Swing. It's too difficult to stay ready I mean, the parts attrition on a top fuel car is those guys work all week to just
Right.
go through and prepare everything for the next race. Even if, we were fortunate, we didn't damage anything all weekend, but you take everything apart and service it. That set of heads that ran one lap goes back and sits in the trailer, and you service it this week and make sure the springs are good, the valves are good, everything's good, the chambers. You just have to pay that attention to detail to everything and not risk some little parts failure and it costs you 75 grand when you blow the motor up from the pan to the injector. It's you don't want some nickel part to do that to you. And so um, that's my opinion.
Payout, man. I mean, I honestly think it's that classic thing, pay the man, right? I mean, when you're going to bring these guys out here and compete at this level and expect them to put on the kind of show that they're putting on, man, you got to at least make it worth their while. I don't think there's a team out here that expects to make money drag racing necessarily. I don't think there's a single one, even the ones that aren't family affairs such as yourself. I mean, I don't know that anybody has the expectation of, hey, we need to win enough money out here that I can, finance my lifestyle, put my kids through college. We just want to minimize the bleeding, right? If we can just curtail the loss a little bit, and my personal opinion, 45,000 to win, that's obviously nothing to sneeze at, but it's honestly, I can't help but feel it smacks of disrespect in some ways. It's like, if you have any knowledge of this sport and what it takes to do this, the dollars that are required, you wouldn't even start that conversation. That's not enough. It's less than half enough. It's not even remotely close. And it just, for me, when I look at this thing and know what we have and the people we have, it's heartbreaking in a lot of ways. But I was just curious, and I didn't, it's easy for me to sit up here and say, oh, pay him more, pay him more. And I know that there's great effort being made to rectify that and to get it trending the right direction. But I tell you what, man, I feel like the time is now, because we can't wait much longer, in my opinion, to get this ship headed in the right direction. Because if nitro racing is going to be the tip of the spear, we need to get this particular part of our sport healthy in a hurry. And I think it starts with Benjamins, man.
Last year it was 15,000 to win the race. It was 70,000 to win the championship. It's just disheartening. And like what you said, it's kind of a slap in the face, but we enjoy what we do. We love to go out there and do it. And that's why everybody's still out there. But it does. You got to have something to help stop the hemorrhage, because these things, they run on money. And effectively, I've had this discussion with NHRA. Professional sports at any level are expensive, whatever it is. Stick and ball sports, it costs to get good players. Whatever it may be. If you're talking about professional bull riding, some of those bulls are $1 million, but they're the best of the best. And we have to remember, at the end of the day, as much as we love to race, we're in the entertainment industry and we need to put on a good show. And we owe that to the fans to be there and to put on a good race. We don't just need a bunch of cars that are idling down through there or skipping sessions. And we need to put on a good show. That's what's going to continue to put people in the stands. That's what people come to see, is two cars going down through there at 330 miles an hour in less than 4 seconds, with fire coming out of them, noise everywhere. Drag racing in itself is a sensory sport. You have to see it, you have to feel it, smell it. And when you can feel sound, you can smell night.
Yes, sir.
That's what puts people in the stands. I've never taken anyone to the drag races that had never been, that didn't instantly become a fan.
That's 100% true, brother. And it is interesting because, and I also see it as a promotional standpoint. You make them made a mention of the entertainment industry that we are absolutely in. Man, having big money involved, it's cheap advertising. Instead of having to buy commercials, right, to get your sport on certain radio stations or in certain magazines or newspapers or whatever, man, pay big money and they'll talk about you. I've seen it myself promoting races or whatever. You start throwing around 100,000, 200,000, you start throwing around big numbers and you start to capture the attention of the media. You start to get them coming to you. And I think the NHRA would be surprised if they would ratchet up those numbers and allow, I don't know that nobody wants, I guarantee you there's nobody at the NHRA that wants you taking a picture with a big cardboard check, right? Because that's the
No,
worst possible thing that could happen. There's not going to be any Happy Gilmore photo shoots, you know, in NHRA right now because nobody wants to talk about that type of stuff. And until we're proud of the amount of money these racers are competing for, we've got a big problem. Steve, I know you got to go, brother. Thank you so much for being here. Next time we'll do this more when you've got more time. All right. I know you're not going to stop winning anytime soon, so I'm sure we'll have a chance shortly.
thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I'd love to do it again.
Thanks, Steve. Be safe, brother.